a screenwriter in Hollywood, California, and he came and he contacted me the other day after reading the book. He goes, "I want to turn this into like a video series," and so in that case, instead of having me behind a desk being a talking head, maybe get some actors, and one guy's the manager coming in calling everybody stupid, and we find some redhead jumping up and saying, "What are you calling us stupid?" and all that kind of stuff. So maybe some videography of some of the stories that are in the book or that I tell in the blogs. But I think the podcast is the way to go.
Hey, I have to tell you, if they're giving you the option of actually trying to do this in a video format, it's something to look into. I will tell you, I have seen some of the worst safety videos in my whole life, I think, in the last couple of years in regards to production value. And they try to make them so dumb, and sorry to put it in that wording, but they try to make them so dumb that it's like you're not going to gather somebody's attention span in regards of them looking at it. You have to make it infotainment to some extent for some people. But if you make it one of these things where it's over the top, people are not going to pay attention. I sat through one recently where I was inside of a company and they were doing their drug and alcohol program for supervisors. As they were doing the 2-hour presentation format, and the actors were acting like they were on the drug. And I was like, do you really think somebody would sit there and listen to this or even pay attention? You're going to lose them after the first couple of minutes.
At a regional safety school, and colleagues from a regional university were there telling us that they had data that putting safety videos in cartoon format was more impactful, and she was showing some mock-ups of some fall protection videos that they had, and I couldn't help but thinking, and the people around me, as we discussed, like exactly what you said. It's interesting at first, but then after a while, it's a little bit insulting.
I have a similar story. I was actually working with a major transportation company, and they had one that was related to clay figures. And the clay figure got smashed. And I was like, how could you release this as a mass production and expect your people to move forward with this and expect it to be okay? I'm sorry that I'm going off on a tangent, but it just bothers me, some of the quality.
Oh, no. I mean, from our science, our science has something to say about this. In order to have these training videos, training in general, these are the quality. Whenever you do a antecedent-based intervention, like anything that directs behavior but doesn't motivate it, so that would be like training, signs, SOPs, etc. Right? The most effective are the ones that not only direct the behavior, but they say what the context of the behavior is in, and they also talk about the consequences of it. So in these videos and training in general, people have to not only get directed, but they have to talk about the context. When should you do the behavior? When shouldn't you do the behavior? What other choices you have? What risk choices do you have, as well as the consequences of all of these? And then you got to give the people an opportunity to practice the safe behaviors as well.
And I agree with you. I agree with you 100%, because it's one of those things that if you make it boring and you don't make sure that they're actually something that's going to keep them engaged, you're wasting your time.
Death by PowerPoint. Now it's death by computer-based training. Oh, my God.
I used that comment, that death by PowerPoint, inside of a meeting that I was recently in, and I did not realize that they had another speaker speaking right after me.
Right after PowerPoint. Oh. I get asked a lot if I have my training on computer-based training, and it just makes me kind of want to vomit, because the impact of that is quite low to begin with, and secondly, it's so overused just to check OSHA boxes that the people tune out. Absolutely. People tune out, especially if they have to do it on their own. They find ways around the algorithm.
And I've seen that. I've definitely seen that in the past. Now, let me ask you this one quick question. What has been the biggest surprise that you've seen in your 30-year career? Has there been something that has stuck out where you went, wow, I never expected this to occur?
I'm a bit of a fiend when it comes to how it's made. Remember the old TV show, How It's Made, and they go in the plants and they say how toothpaste is put in the bottle and stuff like that. So I always go out to the plant, no matter where I am. I always ask for a tour of the plant, and typically I get a tour by like a supervisor, or sometimes even the manager, right? And so we go, and I'm just completely fascinated with the equipment and the process, and then I always ask the safety question, like, what kind of hazards are here? What kind of things we got to look out for? And I learned some pretty sophisticated ways. Energy, physics and chemistry can hurt somebody. And then I ask the same question of the employees, the folks doing the job. Really smart, caring managers, and then ask the same question of the employees, and I'm always surprised how different their answer is, right? The manager always, I shouldn't say always, I don't want to overgeneralize, but the manager typically is going to describe to you the engineering aspects of what can hurt you. What the vendor wrote in the SOPs when they bought the piece of equipment, right? And probably some of the systemic stuff that their safety professionals have been really working on, and all that is absolutely true. But then when you start talking to the worker, the kind of things that they start describing are kind of blind at that next level up, and I think the thing that's really been impressed upon me, this is somebody coming from outside who doesn't have expertise in the systems or the behaviors to keep people safe, what's going on there in the plant. And so I can kind of look at it from a neutral outside perspective. And because of that, you start seeing this disconnect in the conversations that should be happening between the folks on the ground who are interacting with the hazards and taking risks in the context of those hazards, and frankly more abundantly choosing safe behaviors in the abundance of those actions, being quite different than the standard operating procedure, JSA approach of the managers. So, it's been kind of like my life's quest to try to get the safety culture of talking to integrate those two perspectives to a point where we can do something about it before someone gets hurt.
So from that point, what do you think are the most common misconceptions that most CEOs and COOs have about safety?
Well, again, let's go into this saying everybody values safety, right? And so leaders and CEOs understand the breadth of their operation, and in the breadth of the operation, they understand where safety plays its role. When we had a great discussion at ASSP now, and the plenary.
Don't forget the P.
Got to get the P, right? In the plenary debate, which I liked a lot better than the year before, where they're pairing off BBS versus HOP. There was an executive for HSE and his company answering this question. I loved his answer to the question. He says, give these leaders credit. They understand the workplace and that they need to keep their eye on safety. The difference between the engaged leader and the leader that will kind of throw up roadblocks to you is that the engaged leader sees safety as integral into the culture of excellence they're trying to build. And they showed a video from Alcoa, the CEO of Alcoa, bluntly stating, when I took over this company, I knew that we had to have excellence in safety, because once you get excellence in safety, you get excellence in all other parts of the company. So think about it. If you're successful in getting employees talking to other employees about safety, employees talking in teams about safety, employees talking to their managers about safety, managers talking to managers, etc., right? Not only have you got people talking about safety, you've also built the behavior of people talking to each other to improve stuff. And he said the engaged leaders, the ones that see safety as a source of excellence, as opposed to safety as kind of a cost function that we have to manage to keep costs and workers' comp and stuff low, he said that's the big difference between the two. And I thoroughly agree. I thought that was very profound of him.
So yeah, I was really impressed with the whole session overall and just some of the responses. And it seemed like there was finally a common bond. And that's what I really thoroughly enjoyed, I guess, when I walked away from the whole thing.
That's true. Well, there's some personalities up on stage.
Absolutely. For more information about Dr. Ludwig's book, you can go to safety-docs.com, and you can gather the podcast, the book. It's all right there. And of course, make sure that you subscribe to Insight into Your Safety Culture at Apple Podcast and wherever you use as your favorite podcast catcher. Dr. Ludwig,
we're building a community out here, and the more of us that are talking about safety and sharing best practices and sharing ideas, the better. So, Jay, I appreciate what you're doing, and all the other podcasters out there, folks writing books, the folks putting out blogs and the like. Together with those workers out there that really understand where risks are being taken, where the hazards are, and all the managers who've dedicated their career to keeping these workers safe. This is a community that we've got to keep building. So I appreciate your role in that as well, Jay.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for your time, Dr. Ludwig.
My pleasure.
The views and opinions expressed on this podcast are those of the host and its guest and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the company. Examples of analysis discussed within this podcast are only examples. They should not be utilized in the real world as the only solution available, as they are based only on very limited and dated open source information. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the position of the company. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic, recording, or otherwise, without prior written permission of the creator of the podcast, Jay Allen.
Safety FM, changing safety cultures, one broadcast and one podcast at a time.